All right, well, welcome to the House of Delegates meeting, April 5th, 2025. The first thing I'd like to do is describe the meeting. It is a hybrid meeting. We are joined by colleagues virtually from across the state and around the world. Before we begin, I ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted online and will be available to members of the association, members of the public, and the media. A reminder that materials are now posted to the House of Delegates webpage. Any supplemental materials that were submitted late have been posted. If you've not already done so, please complete the attendance cards, the blue ones, that are at your tables. Return them to the staff at the registration desk at the end of the meeting, as this is our procedure for taking attendance. For our remote attendees, attendance is recorded via Zoom. Please ensure that your full name is displayed in Zoom so that your attendance can be properly recorded. I would also like to remind our delegates who are participating via Zoom on the mechanics of remote participation in this meeting. First, for reports for which discussion and votes are required, please use the raise hand feature after the presentation of the report so as to be recognized if you wish to request to speak. Second, after discussion is completed, you'll be asked to complete a poll that will appear on your Zoom screen. You will select aye, nay, or abstain, and then click submit. You'll have 20 minutes to do 20 minutes. No, you won't have 20 minutes. You'll have 20 seconds. You'd think if I was reading it, I would not make that mistake, but no, I did. The vote results will be displayed on your screen. Third, if you abstain from a vote, please send an email to Melissa O'Clair at moclair@nysba.org so that your abstention can be recorded in the minutes. If you're attending the meeting in person, please use the standing microphones should you wish to speak to a report. For any items which require a vote, the voice vote in the room will occur simultaneously with the launch and closing of the online poll. Please note that there will be a short delay to allow the in-person and online votes to be tallied. For all delegates, both those participating remotely and those here in person, if selected to speak, as has been our practice, we ask that you follow these guidelines to promote an orderly discussion and debate. Delegates should identify themselves and their affiliations, should speak only once, and limit their remarks to 3 minutes. If I notify you that your time has expired, please end your remarks. My comments are not a reflection on your position, but rather my responsibility to ensure that all members participate fairly in the discussion. Any questions to a presenter or otherwise should be directed to me as chair of the House. Delegates should refrain from procedural motions until substantive discussion is completed. In this regard, a delegate may rise to speak to the motion on the floor and advise me that they intend to make a procedural motion at the appropriate time. I will recognize you to make such a motion. All presenters and delegates rising to speak will be treated with collegiality and respect by all members of the House. We will now proceed with the meeting. The first matter is the approval of the minutes of the January 17th, 2025 meeting in New York City. Unless there are any corrections, amendments, or objections to the minutes, they will be accepted as distributed. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next, our treasurer, Susan Harper, will present her report.
Thank you. And good morning also. Good to see you all today in person on this sort of rainyish, gloomy day, but I have a lot of nice positive news for everyone. So let's enjoy this while we have it. Okay. So I'm going to report on today about the audit results of the operations for the year ending December 2024. We're then going to touch on the February 2025 operating budget, the annual meeting, investments, as well as cybersecurity reminders in this changing landscape. So our audit was completed by BST and Company, CPAs, an independent auditing firm here in Albany. The opinion that was issued was unmodified, which is the highest degree of assurance. In the auditor's opinion, the financial statements of the New York State Bar Association are presented fairly. There were no adjustments and no errors found. The total revenues for fiscal year 2024 were 19.4 million and expenses were 19.6 million, producing a slight loss of 155,000. Contributing factors to the operating loss, which I have mentioned in some of my previous reports, included some of the destination meetings that we held, an increase in our 2024 annual meeting expense as some sections decided to hold offsite meetings, and this was last minute, and we had food and beverage minimums with the Hilton and our IT department going over budget. The audit committee is meeting with auditors on April 9th to review the report and accept the audit. The finance committee is meeting with the auditors to review the 990 on February 15th, which should be filed on or before May 15th, 2025. I want to thank our finance department right there, headed up by Amir Razanovich, and our newest finance team, Greg Matisse. It was a very demanding audit this year, given the fact that we changed our membership model. They were challenged in many different ways, and they rose to that challenge. So I want to congratulate them both. Thank you. In our next two slides, we're going to take a look at our sources of revenue and expenditures in 2024. First, we're going to look at the revenue. As I mentioned previously, total revenues in 2024 were 19.4 million. Though I'm displaying categories with percentages on the chart, I'm bringing to your attention four major sources that make up 79% of our revenue. Membership dues collected in 2024 were 8.5 million, and which is 44% of our total revenue. Our CLE brought in 2.5 million, which is 13% of our total revenue. Our royalty contract with USI pays 2 million annually, which equates to 10% of our revenue. And our section programs collected 2.2 million, which is 12% of our revenue. I want to congratulate our sections and our CLE department, our membership department, and we have a corporate partnership team as well, and our staff for their good work in driving our association revenue to support our association work and our mission. But now let's turn to our expenses. So our total expenses in 2024 were 19.6 million. Our main expenses are salaries and fringe for New York State Bar employees, which is about 7.5 million, or about 39%. Our building and general administrative expenses, such as insurance, taxes, plant, and equipment, came in at 2 million, or about 11%. Section expenses amounted to 3.5 million, or 18%. We continue to invest heavily in IT, and those expenses ended this year at 2.2 million, or 12%. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank Pam and our leaders for being good stewards and minding our expenses. And now we're going to go on to discuss operational results for the 2 months of 2025. And we have some very good news to share. As of February 28th, 2025, revenues recognized were 5.2 million and deferred dues income was 7.7 million and expenses were 4.5 million. We are including deferred dues to be able to compare dues revenues, which was recognized in the past in the first month of 2024. As everybody remembers, we all had to pay our dues, and in January, that's when it was all due. But now anybody can join the New York State Bar in any month that they want. So since our membership model has changed, as I mentioned, we're now on an anniversary term and dues are recognized equally each month. Compared to the same time period last year, our revenues are up and expenses are slightly down. So this means we're trending in a positive direction. Let's now turn to the 2025 annual meeting, which occurred this January. I'd like to bring your attention to revenues and expenses that the annual meeting generated. More good news. We collected $1 million, out of which $246,000 related to the gala, And as everybody knows, John Gross and Gerard were involved in spearheading our sponsorship efforts and many others. And 821,000 consists of our annual meeting revenue, consists of registration fees, full and half-day CLEs, and annual meeting sponsorships. This year, we were able to achieve 121,000 increase over last year. And this is mostly due to the small increase we made to our registration fees for the annual meeting. But expenses that came into the annual meeting were 1.6 million. So we had a decrease of 108,000 over last year. So obviously we have a very, very big annual meeting team. I want to thank Kathy Sahusky and Gerard and John Gross and all of our sponsors and our entire staff for their outstanding work for the annual meeting. It is a huge, huge effort. They do such an enormous work. So thank you so much. So let's now move to the new membership model, and this is very encouraging news. So the new membership model that went live in September 2024 has generated $10.5 million. The New York State Bar membership dues have seen an increase of 2.2 million, while sections also realize an increase of 293,000. This is a promising start to our new model. CLE is also doing well. The Bridging the Gap is generating additional revenue, and the International Estate Planning Institute, which was held in March, has exceeded revenue expectations. So this was a huge, huge, huge undertaking. As we all know, you heard from our membership chairs, Michelle and Clotel, and Pam and Gerard and the entire team. This was an enormous IT effort behind the scenes to upgrade the background. Our finance committee was involved in terms of our investments and allocating money towards a marketing team, that new marketing team that came in. So I really want to congratulate everyone. This was an enormous effort for everyone. So let's just give a round of applause for them, because this was really important. Thank you all. Okay, now we have even better news. Okay, so now onto the section royalties. Because the news just keeps getting better and better, because based on our new membership model, all of our sections are now receiving more than they did in the past year. So I want to make sure that you take a look at all the red and then the last column in green. So over the past, from 2021 to 2024, our sections were showing a decline in dues, okay? And that's over year. While in 2025, sections are getting on average, when combined all together, 26% more. 3 sections showed a small loss and were made whole by the association as was presented to the House of Delegates and to the EC in the first 2 years. That was ComFed for $424, the international section of $1,002, and the trust and estate section for about $4,600. So this is very nominal, and I'm very delighted at our results. And we have heard back from sections who have expressed very strong appreciation and support for the new model. We have been doing a lot of outreach to our sections to make sure that all that we're doing is transparent to them. Just recently, I sent a letter to the sections just concerning budgets and surpluses and royalties and statements, and Amira has sent out letters to the sections informing them of their royalties as well as surplus. And yesterday we were at the section caucus meeting to be there for them too, in case they had any questions. So I want to thank everybody for all their efforts on that as well. Now we're going to move to membership benefits. So we've been hearing just from some members, and maybe not anybody in this room, but we've been hearing from some members, and we just want to make sure we inform everybody just about our new membership model and what everybody is receiving. So you get access to all online CLEs for free, access to the entire ebook library and hundreds of online forums, thousands of articles covering legal topics, 2 section memberships, and full access to our New York State partner benefits and discounts. So since going live, we've seen many members utilize our webinars and ebooks. And so please use your voice to spread the benefits and make all our members aware of these amazing benefits included in our membership price. Okay, now we're going to turn to the investments. Okay, so as of the end of February, this is good news for February, okay? As of February, our investments portfolio has increased by 6.9% since the end of 2024. Obviously, I cannot tell you what's going to happen now going forward. We didn't, as we were coming into this meeting, we don't have our account statements just yet. Our Finance Committee, as I had mentioned, is meeting in the upcoming week or so. And we will be meeting with our advisors as we normally do, UBS, Bank of America, and JP Morgan, and they're all fabulous. We're very well diversified, and so we look forward to that and bringing you more news as we move forward. Now we're going to move on to one last topic, and that's on distraction and fraud awareness. So I wanted to just talk, just to bring to everybody's attention, we all know there's so much going on in the news right now, just every day, you know, talking about just what's happening with attorneys, what's going on just in general, just with our economies and our economy and downsizing. And so in many ways, some of the guardrails have come off. And I think it's really important that we keep this in mind as, you know, the FBI, which is one of the main government agencies overseeing cyber. They have had a reduction in force. There's going to be less regulation in the crypto world. Regulators such as the CFPB workforce has been decimated. And all of this can really embolden bad actors, okay, embolden bad actors. And with everything on the news, we can all be easily distracted. And I'm one of these same people too. We're on the Zoom meetings, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this. And as your treasurer, I'm reminding all leaders in the association and our members to stop and think before they click or act. I want to bring to your attention a cybercrime called corporate account takeover. And this type of crime attacks and impersonates a business to carry out an unauthorized wire or ACH transfer. Stolen funds are then transferred to the criminals. Many businesses are susceptible to account takeover, especially those with weak cyber measures and limited controls over their online banking systems. And these attacks can lead to significant losses. Some of the attacks, as some of you know, are phishing, clicking links, downloading, pre-texting. Be very careful with text messages, especially if you're getting alerts. Let's say an alert from the bank or alert from UPS or alert from PayPal. Business email compromise. Domenick, Kathleen says, hey, I need you to do a favor. Could you go out and get me X, Y, and Z? Well, many times people tend to react, especially to people who, you know, in different positions and stuff. And so just stop and think beforehand. As well as there's a new one on the rise that I just want to make sure that you're all aware of, and that's deep fakes. Okay, and this is really, really to keep an eye on. And for us lawyers, just to let you know, there's been an enormous amount of legislation that has been introduced on deep fakes on the state level, as well as there's been some significant on the federal level too. But what happens with deep fakes is that someone creates a video or a recording of your voice and pretending to be a high-ranking executive to trick employees and individuals to transfer funds or sharing sensitive data. In one incident, criminals created a deep fake video of a CFO, and staffers of a nearly 80-year-old company were scammed, and an employee wired $25 million, okay? And I've heard stories about even deep fakes on like Zooms. So I think it's just very important for all of us to be training our colleagues, our employees, our staff, employ strong access management, you know, hover over email links. And when on Zoom, if someone's asking you to do something, first of all, make sure that you're looking at people very closely, you know, and I just sat through a session on this and they said, look at the people. Do their eyes look normal? Does their voice sound normal? Do they have an extra finger? Does their skin complexion look normal? Does the audio sound okay? So, and when in doubt, you know, please just pick up the phone and call the person. Call the person to make sure. So I want to thank you for your time today. And last, I also want to just recognize and thank Domenick for his leadership. I know this is his last official meeting of the House, and we appreciate all his outstanding efforts and hard work for the State Bar while being the president, before being the treasurer too. And thank you, Domenick. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Your report is received with the thanks of the House. And I'm hopeful no one's looking too closely at my complexion. For our next agenda item, Our president, Domenick Napoletano, will present the report of the president.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Susan, for those kind words. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Good morning, dear colleagues. How are you today? It is indeed great to see everyone here at the Bar Center. It has been my honor, no, indeed, it has been my privilege to serve as president of this august association this past year. As president, I have always remembered that when I've spoken on behalf of all of you, our members, and on behalf of our noble profession. Allora, buongiorno a tutti. Ah, vedi, sta qualcuno che parla italiano. Allora, è stato veramente un grande privilegio di me di servirvi a tutti di voi come il vostro presidente quest'anno. Voglio che deve capire che quando io ho parlato per tutti voi. Non ho parlato soltanto per me, ho parlato per la nostra associazione e per la nostra professione. So, I said those few words, although David is looking at me with daggers because I sort of paraphrased what he wrote for me, but that's okay. I said those few words in Italian because I am a proud first-generation Italian American. We are a nation of immigrants, a nation whose beautiful mosaic of different cultures, different languages, gives our great nation the enduring strength and endless opportunities that it provides. It is the diversity of our association and this House of Delegates, with members from Brooklyn, Buffalo, conservative and liberal, prosecutors and defenders, new lawyers, and long-established lawyers. They give strength to our policies and positions. So when a report comes with recommendations, it comes after hard work that's been done by our sections and our committees, and it is debated in this very House. We have positions that are vigorously vetted, they are balanced, and by far they are educational. And when the policies of our association have come under attack, I have spoken loudly and clearly on behalf of the association. In recent months, we have addressed no less than on five separate occasions, executive orders that have targeted our profession, our judges, and the policies of this House. Now, at your tables, I had asked Melissa to put a list of those things that we've done. Please don't just don't touch the paper. It's not going to bring you to the link. But you also, I believe, should have gotten, and if not, will have gotten an email with all of the links so that you can actually read what we've done. And while some may feel that we still haven't done enough, I can report to you without breaching any confidentiality, because what we're discussing now is still rather confidential. But you will perhaps hear, maybe within the next week to 10 days, something else that's on the horizon. I leave it for now with that, but I really can't go into more. But if we do go down this new path, it may be something that hopefully some will like, maybe some won't. I've said all along, can't please everybody, but we try. So, some of the things that we've done. We've spoken in support of constitutional privileges such as birthright citizenship, which is of course close to my heart. As I said, being a first-generation Italian American, both my parents immigrated to this country from Italy. And it's also dear to my heart because I grew up in a neighborhood in Brooklyn where there were a lot of immigrant people that lived there. We have decried threats to judges because they must be free to do what their jobs entitled them to do, fear of any repercussions or fear of any type. We have advocated the right for counsel for non-citizens because they do not know the consequences that they may face if they go into an investigation or the targets, rather, an investigation without having the benefit of counsel. And in those criminal cases, those who perhaps may wish to plead guilty may not know the consequences if they don't have counsel, that they may be deported as a result of it. In every case which we have spoken out, we have based it on our policies that have been approved by this very House. Our positions are respected by elected representatives, the entire legal community, because, as I said, they are well conceived, they are well balanced, and they do not merely react to the news of the day. We do not do things on a knee-jerk reaction. We have not, and I know that we will continue not to do that. But most of all, it's because of you, the members of this House, which I respect, all of you, for all that you've done and all that you will continue to do. And when it comes to membership, as our esteemed treasurer has spoken a minute ago about, the association, as you heard, has gone through a rather unique change in how we structure our membership. So I want to thank Michelle Wildgrube, who has co-chaired the membership committee since 2022, and who has served on that committee since 2014, including 5 years as vice chair. Michelle has led the most necessary, transformational, but the least glamorous initiative in recent association history. Michelle has served with 2 co-chairs, first with Clotel Drakeford and currently with Helen Naves. Michelle's work has been dedicated to the long-term betterment and sustainability of our association, and she has presented to every executive committee and to all of the houses since 2022, and will present later on today as well. Focus of the membership committee has been and will continue to be to successfully take us to where we are leading in terms of our membership model. And I know that both her and Helen will continue to do the good jobs that they've done so far. The new membership model also led to more member participation, as you heard, an educational program. And so I want to cite 2 more examples to point. Just a week ago, more than 500 attorneys attended a CLE on immigration law. As that landscape, as we all have come to understand, has been changing in this country. We also hosted a program on the rule of law, and that program had no less than 300 attorneys attend. It was a fireside chat with former Judge Barry Kamens and with former prosecutor of the Southern District, Kerry Cohen, who prosecuted Shelley Silver, for those of you who may not know who she is. We have also been to the state capitol. We have spoken to our legislators on our legislative priorities, and Talia, myself, and Kathleen will be heading to Washington next week, where we will be doing the same down there with the members of Congress and the Senate. We have spoken very favorably about reforming discovery laws in criminal matters because they are in need of reform. We have spoken to the Secretary of State and continue to have conversations with Walter Mosley, who is the Secretary of State, on easing the burdensome notary requirements. I hope within the next 2 weeks to meet with the Secretary again to see what inroads we can make in terms of that. we have s- spoken very highly in favor of, and the bill did pass the legislature on expanding e-filing and also increasing counsel rates. The e-filing bill that was passed by the state legislature this past session now allows OCA to expand e-filing where it no longer, where it doesn't exist. Suffolk and Nassau County come to mind, without having to go to the legislature for approval. So the approval is automatic. They can do it anytime they choose to. We've collaborated with 3 other bar associations on IOLA to prevent the state seizure of millions of dollars from the IOLA fund, so that indigent New Yorkers are not denied their access to justice. We have submitted just recently an amicus brief urging the Second Circuit Court of Appeals to keep unproven claims against New York attorneys confidential until a determination of wrongdoing and discipline is actually meted out by the court. That case was brought in the Southern District of New York by a group of law professors who were angry at some Queens prosecutors whom they claimed perhaps wronged, and it wasn't even their client. But they felt that full disclosure of those proceedings, even before discipline was even proven, should be made available. Well, that is a pretty slippery slope. I think we could all understand what the impact of social media has on all of us. The law that we're hopeful that the Second Circuit will uphold is Judiciary Law 9010. That law has been on the books now, from what I'm told, about 80 years, so it has some legs to it. I want to thank in that endeavor former presiding justice of the Appellate Division First Department, Ronaldo Acosta, who, along with his firm Pillsbury Winthrop, took on the task of writing that amicus brief, and they did a hell of a job, and they did it, as we would say in Italian, on the braccio. I think Michael Marinaccio is here. He understands what I meant. He's laughing. We've encouraged Chief Judge Wilson and the Office of Court Administration to develop a new challenging bar exam in the state, so that those who now become fully admitted lawyers actually have the tools within which to actually practice law in the state. It's, in my opinion, rather sad what's going on when you can sit for a bar exam with an open book. I don't think anyone here in this room took a bar exam where we had open book. A good first step, I assume, in encouraging a more vigorous exam would be to urge law schools to reinstate mandatory New York practice. Because believe it or not, it's no longer mandatory in most New York schools. It's an elective that very few students take. And the reason why they don't take it is because it's not being tested, so why take it? Makes sense. We have addressed, at least I believe, all of the issues that impact our members, that also impact our profession, and more importantly, the public that we are so very privileged to serve. Now, this part I did not know, but it was told to me that I have traveled and have attended over 100 events this past year, or over the past 300 days. I've met with Chief Judge Wilson, Kathleen and I have, on at least 2, if not more occasions. I was privileged to actually sit on the Court of Appeals bench and listen to testimony that was given by legal service organizations that were representative throughout the state. I have spoken with local and affinity bars to discuss how we may strengthen our partnership with them. I have met with young lawyers at a bar in Manhattan. And they were kind enough, there's Jacob, kind enough to buy me a drink. Thank you, Jacob. I have met with ABA President-elect Michelle Benke to gain a better understanding of their concerns. And have also met with the Attorney General for the United Kingdom and members of the Georgia Bar Association who gave me a really nice hat. And as well, the Milan Bar Association, with whom I had the privilege of speaking again to them in Italian, and I think they understood me with my Southern dialect as it is. And also the Law Society of England, again, to find common grounds that would strengthen our collective voice. I have always truly believed that the members of the New York State Bar Association are the most talented and dedicated legal professionals in this entire country. Actually, I'll take that even one step further. Given those members of other associations that I met across the globe, I believe that all of you and all of our members in total are probably the most talented and dedicated throughout the world. These past 10 months, however, have further heightened my appreciation for your skills and how you collaborate with all of us up here to improve not only what we do as lawyers, but our entire legal profession as a whole. Your integrity, input, advice, and thoughtful counsel have helped me tremendously throughout this year. Could not have done it alone. I want to thank all of the sections and the committees for their efforts to better serve our members. I've relied upon you because of your extraordinary talent and commitment to our association, and because I wanted to encourage new members so that they could capitalize on fresh ideas and opinions. As some of you may recall, at the beginning of my term, I said that actually all of the task forces that I put together were going to be collaborative with sections and committees joining together. And we've done that. And they've worked on things, and one of the things that we put out to do is going to report in a little while. Looking ahead, we must ensure that our newest members have the tools to propel our profession and society forward. The stronger our association is, the stronger our voice will be on behalf of our profession. That is why I'm so grateful for the work that you have done over the past year to promote the association's new members, our new membership model, and to benefit each of us here today. I will confidently hand over the gavel, well, the gavel has already been handed over to Kathleen, but the mantle, should have said, of the president of this association on June 1st. I know without even one equivocation that this association is going to be in great, great hands. Last night, Kathleen was kind enough to say, with my wife present, that she loves me. Well, I've come to know and love this woman. She is truly a remarkable lady. She has had my back this entire year. And I mean that. Literally, she has had my back. And I cannot thank her enough for her friendship, for her loyalty to this association, more importantly. And so, Kathleen, I know that this group of wonderful individuals is going to be in fabulous hands in a short time. I would like to also thank immediate past President Richard Lewis, past President designee Talia Grays, our Treasurer Susan Harper, and the entire Executive Committee, and all of you here in the House who are supporting me during my term. And while I've accomplished maybe a little, there's certainly a lot more to do. So I would like to end, because if I don't, I'm really going to get it. But before I even get there, I want to thank the staff. I want to thank our General Counsel, Dave Miranda, our Executive Director, Pam McNivet. I want to thank that lady standing in the back who never gets any acclimates, Melissa O'Clair. Thank you, Melissa. But I want to end by thanking my wife, who has stood behind me this entire year. She has tolerated all of the things that I've had to do. She has traveled with me, certainly, to a lot of destinations that she would have otherwise perhaps not have gone to. So, Fran, thank you. I want to also thank my kids, Alexis, who is a partner at a law firm in Austin, Texas, now a member of 3 bar associations, New York, New Jersey, and the great state of Texas, and my son, Nicholas, who, if any of you needs your car repaired, Nicholas is a fabulous, fabulous mechanic. But thank you all. Thank you so much.
President Napolitano, don't get too comfortable. You have the next agenda item. You did, yes.
So, I'm sorry, Kathleen, I started as treasurer with some comedic effects, right? So I don't know, all right, so I ended with a comedic effect. Did you see the Looney Tunes? Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the presentation of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Memorial Scholarship Award. In November 2020, the association's executive committee approved the creation of the scholarship award to be awarded annually to a law student who, through written submission, research project, or exemplary internship, externship, or pro bono service, demonstrates character consistent with and honoring the legacy of the late Supreme Court Associate Justice and native New Yorker, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This year's award recipient is Talia Scott of NYU School of Law. President Napolitano will present the award.
So, as you heard, each April, we come together during this House of Delegates meeting to celebrate a rising star in our profession. The Ruth Bader Ginsburg Memorial Scholarship is presented to a law student who embodies the spirit, determination, and work ethic of the late Supreme Court Justice. This year's recipient is that shining star, and I am thrilled to share a little story about her with you. Talia Scott and I grew up in different parts of New York City, she from Harlem, myself from Brooklyn. But we are alike in that we are both children of immigrant parents, first-generation college students as well. Her work ethic and commitment to the value of education helped Talia succeed in high school, after which she attended Harper College on a full 4-year scholarship. Even with tuition covered, Talia worked while in college, continuing to support her family back in Harlem. After graduation, she worked for Cravat, Swain & Moore as a paralegal, gaining experience in the legal profession. She calls it a full circle movement when she was able to help her once undocumented mother navigate the path to citizenship. While applying to law school, Talia quickly learned how daunting the process is and how it is just too costly for many applicants. She also realized how few Black women work in law, and she was determined to change that. Talia founded the Legally BLK Fund, which helps Black women with funding for LSAT prep courses, law school application fees, and travel expenses. Through crowdsourcing on social media, she was able to help 10 women apply for law school in her first year. In the 3 years since, Legally BLK has helped to grow more than 50 women in law school. She is one woman pipeline to law school, and her organization is now expanding after mentoring and professional development services. Talia is a 3L at NYU Law School in the JD MBA program. When she graduates, she plans to enter the field as a mergers and acquisition attorney while continuing her work with Legally BLK. Talia embodies Justice Ginsburg's dedication to equality and access for all. Please join me in congratulating Talia, the 2025 Ruth Bader Ginsburg Memorial Scholarship awardee. Talia?
Good morning, all. Thank you to the New York State Bar Association, the Women in Law section, and everyone who made this recognition possible. My name is Talia Scott, and I'm a JD MBA at NYU School of Law and Stern School of Business. I also want to give a special thanks to Dean Troy McKenzie of NYU Law, Dean Morrison, Professor Melissa Murray, and Professor Jerry Rosenfeld, not just for nominating me for this honor, but for supporting me, encouraging me, and uplifting me throughout my time at NYU Law. I also want to recognize my mother and younger sister who are up there here with me today. Your belief in me has meant the world, and I carry that with me every single day. It's a profound honor to receive a scholarship bearing the name of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a woman who didn't wait for space to be made for her, but reshaped the legal profession by making space for others. She spent her life turning exclusion into opportunity, not by asking politely, but by challenging the very foundations of what the law considered normal. She believed that the law could be a tool of equity, that it could reflect everyone, and she showed us that representation isn't just symbolic, it's transformative. I know that truth intimately. As mentioned, as a Black woman, Harlem native, child of an immigrant, and first-generation college and professional student, my life has been defined by defined expectations. And for me, entering the legal profession was more than a career choice. It was a bold declaration of possibility. I didn't grow up surrounded by lawyers. I didn't see people who looked like me, interpreting the law, writing it, or leading within it. So I made a choice, not just to become what I didn't see, but to create a pathway so others wouldn't have to look as hard to find themselves in the legal profession. That vision is what led me to create the Legally Black Fund, a nonprofit dedicating to supporting and investing Black women in Black women on their path to law school. What began as a passion project back in June of 2020 and was rooted in my love for the film Legally Blonde, born from urgency and lived experience, has grown into a movement. Every day, I get to help cultivate a community of Black women who will become our future public defenders, judges, professors, general counsel, firm partners, and more. Women who will shape doctrine, policy, and culture. Women who will just not practice the law, but redefine whose lives and futures it protects. In addition to closing the gap in access, what I'm most proud of is that I built what I needed at the time, but didn't have. A pipeline of support for Black women who are brilliant, driven, and too often overlooked. And I've used every experience and room I've entered, from Haverford College to Cravath, from NYU Law to Stern, from Warner Music Group to Lazard, and from Sussan Godfrey to Davis Polk, to hold the door open for me, to hold the door open behind me, to help the next woman not just find her way in, but thrive when she's there. And that has been the greatest honor of my journey so far, and I'm just getting started. Right now, as you know, DEI in the legal profession is being challenged and systematically dismantled. Pipeline programs are being eliminated, diversity efforts are being stalled, and politicized and challenged. and initiatives designed to widen access, even modestly, are being reframed as threats to meritocracy. But let's be honest, diversity has never been the opposite of merit. It's a reflection of it. Expanding who gets a shot doesn't dilute excellence, it reveals it. And progress in this profession for people like me has never been inevitable. It's required intention, persistence, and vision. I've seen brilliance exist far beyond the usual channels of power, and I've watched how often it goes overlooked, not for lack of talent, but because the legal profession was never structured to find it or foster it. And that's why I created the Legally Black Fund. Not just to make space for myself, but to make space for those coming next, and to ensure that they would find more light, more access, and more possibility than I did. Over the past 7 months, I've had the privilege of working with and teaching the law to brilliant young girls of color from New York City public schools at NYU Law on the weekends. In spite of everything happening in the world, the attack on democracy, the attack on the rule of law, on DEI, the shrinking of opportunity, and the growing sense that maybe there isn't just enough space for them in this profession, those young girls that I work with remain determined. They are still asking the hard questions, still raising their voices, still dreaming of becoming lawyers, not just to succeed, but to serve. And that tells me two things: that the work that I've done matters, and that there's still so much more to do. Justice Ginsburg understood that change is generational. She opened the door, and now it's on us to keep it open, to widen it, and to walk others through it. Because a more inclusive profession isn't a radical idea, it's a necessary one. And Justice Ginsburg knew that. I'm proud to stand in that legacy and more committed than ever to carrying it forward. Thank you all for seeing me. Thank you all for believing in the future that I'm fighting for. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Congratulations, Talia. Thank you for those inspirational words, and thank you, President Napolitano.
Madam Chair, would it be possible to provide the members of the House with the link to the organization in case any of us are inclined to make a contribution?
We'll make sure that happens. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Our next item is a memorial from past President Mark Alcott, who will remember with us another past president, Alexander D. Forger, who passed away last month, March 9th, at the age of 102.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, fellow delegates. We, the legal world, our world, we did lose a giant last month when Alex Forger passed away into his second century of life, and it was a great life. Alex was one of those rare lawyers who practiced his profession at the very highest level while simultaneously rendering public service also at the highest level. He had a cutting-edge education at Princeton and Yale Law School. He used that education to very good effect. After law school, he entered the portals of Milbank Tweed, a great firm which became even greater because of Alex's leadership. He was the architect of the firm's growth in size and in stature. Alex was a progressive leader of the firm and the profession. He was concerned with the bottom line, but not only with the bottom line. Under his aegis, Milbank became the first major law firm to offer medical and other benefits to the same-sex partners of its gay personnel. He was a champion of gay rights throughout his career. most notably during the AIDS epidemic, when he, in defiance of entrenched prejudice at the time, he established and chaired the Volunteer Project to provide legal services for people with HIV/AIDS. He was also a champion of women's rights, who was a leader in the successful effort to elevate women to the highest ranks of the American Bar Association. Alex specialized in trusts and estates law. He had a AAA list of clients, which included Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Katharine Hepburn, the Rockefeller family, the Mellon family, and many others, well-known names to you. But while advising and representing the rich and famous, Alex made his most notable contribution by serving the needs of the poorest, the weakest, the most vulnerable members of society. Access to justice was his watchword, and he was a leader in the effort to entrench pro bono services in the legal profession. He served as president and chairman of the Legal Aid Society for 11 years. And then by appointment of President Clinton, he was president of the Legal Services Corporation. These titles, president, chairman, occur throughout Alex's career. He was a leader who rose to the top of the many entities that he served. That included New York Law School, of which he was chairman, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, of which he was director, and Rockefeller University, of which he was a trustee. And his service also included service to the organized bar. Alex held many important positions in the organized bar as a state delegate to the ABA, but most notably as president of our association, the New York State Bar Association, and to his credit, he never called it NYSBA. During my own tenure as president, I bestowed the gold medal, our highest honor at that time, on Alex Forger. And I remember very well at the annual meeting, which in those days was held in the Harvard Club, the occasion when I presented that award to him. And I happen to have a picture of it, which hangs on the wall in my office. A glittering occasion attended by the judiciary, the leaders of our profession. It was very easy to craft my remarks because I just stole them from Alex's own speeches and articles. Now, the gold medal that I gave him was not the only award Alex won. He served in combat in World War II, and he received the Bronze Star for heroism in battle. In addition to all his other achievements, Alex was the quintessential family man. His first wife, Nan, a lovely and extremely talented woman, was a community leader like Alex himself. She served as a village trustee in Larchmont, which was a great breakthrough for her, not only because she was a woman, but because she was a Democrat, which was quite unheard of at that time. She and Alex were married for 47 years. I had the great good fortune of working on many community projects with Nan. After Nan's death, he was introduced to Fern Scher. Now, the matchmaker was none other than Chief Judge Judith Kaye, who was close to both of them and who thought that they would make a great match. And as usual, Judge Kaye was right. And Alex and Fern were married for 28 years. Like Alex, she was a leader of the organized bar. She was the chief executive, as it was then called, of the New York City Bar Association. As it was not then called. It was then called the Association of the Bar, but Fern was a great leader of our profession. Alex has a cornucopia of children, stepchildren, grandchildren, step-grandchildren, 3 of whom are named Alex, which I think is a great tribute to our friend. I was privileged to know Alex for more than 50 years as a friend, neighbor, colleague, and as a mentor of mine. He was a great source of encouragement and wisdom in my own career. One of these people, not that there are many of these people, who would always call to commend me, to encourage me, and that was a great source of strength for me. I will miss Alex Forger. We will all miss him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alcott. For those of you who are wondering if I made a mistake and skipped the nominating committee slate, I just was trying to build up the suspense. Past President and Chair of the Nominating Committee, T. Andrew Brown, will now present the election of the Nominating Committee and State Bar delegates to the ABA House of Delegates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. With an introduction calling for suspense, I wish I had a few jokes to share with you, but I don't. I'm here in my capacity as Chair of the Nominating Committee, and on behalf of the committee, I submit nominations for district representatives and alternates to the Nominating Committee for the 2025-2026 term. The nominees are as follows, and you will note a modest change to an entry for the 7th district, which is slightly different from what you were provided with in your materials. 1st district, David Cohn, Lisa Stenson Desamores, Honorable Margaret Finnerty, Mark Griffin, Michael Miller, Ronald Minkoff, Richard Swanson, Myra Weiss, Stephen Younger, the Honorable Michael Sonberg, 1st alternate. Jay Chandrasekhar, 2nd alternate. Bridget Ahn, 3rd alternate. 2nd district, the Honorable Cheryl Chambers, Pauline Young-Ha, Honorable Joanne Quinones, alternate. 3rd district, Matthew Kelly, Matthew Geismer, Mark Houston, alternate. 4th district, Margaret Gilmartin, Michelle Kulak, Luke John Babby, alternate. 5th district, Donald Dorr, the Honorable Jean Marie Restlake, John McCann, alternate. 6th district, Alyssa Ferrero, Rachel Ellen Miller, Michael May, alternate. 7th district, Eileen Buchholz, Amy Swartz, Wallace, Kevin Ryan, alternate. 8th district, Vincent Doyle, Thomas O'Donnell, Sophie Field, alternate. 9th district, Claire Degnan, John Papalardo, the Honorable Jonah Treubweiser, Andrea Soto, alternate. 10th district, Eileen Cooper, Rezanul Islam, Peter Mancuso, Stanford Stringer, Stephen Leventhal, 1st alternate, the Honorable Maxine Sonia Broderick, 2nd alternate. 11th district, Richard Gutierrez, Zenith Taylor, Arthur Terranova, alternate. 12th district, Michael Marinaccio, Suzanne McElreath, Renee Corley Hill, alternate. 13th district, Jonathan Behrens, Claire Cody Miller, the Honorable Edwina Francis Martin, alternate. Madam Chair, I move that a single unanimous ballot be cast by the Secretary for the election of the district representatives and alternates on the nominating committee for the 2025-2027 term.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor? We will pause for the calculation from the online vote. All right. Is there a motion that a single unanimous ballot be cast by the secretary for the election of the delegates? All in favor? We're good. All right. Thank you, past President Brown, and congratulations to the elected delegates.
Channeling past President Mark Alcott, the New York State Bar Association, and not NISBA, has 11 delegates to the American Bar Association House of Delegates. Delegates serve 2-year terms beginning in August at the conclusion of the ABA annual meeting. 6 of these delegates, including the young lawyer delegate, are elected in even-numbered years. 5 of these delegates are elected in odd-numbered years. We now have to elect the 5 delegates who will serve for the 2025-2027 term, beginning at the conclusion of the 2025 ABA annual meeting in August. On behalf of the nominating committee, I submit the following nominations for delegates to the American Bar Association House of Delegates for the 2025-2027 term. Michael Miller of New York City, Scott Carson of Melville, Sherry Levin Wallach of White Plains, Domenick Napoletano of Brooklyn, and Talia Grays of New York City. I move that a single unanimous ballot be cast by the Secretary for the election of the delegate nominees to the American Bar Association House of Delegates.
All in favor? Online? Remember, I gave them 20 minutes for this. All right, thank you.
And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, past President Brown. And congratulations to all those that were elected. The next item on our agenda today is the report of the Task Force on Ageism and Discrimination, presented by Chair Fran Rabias-Napoletano. Sharon Stiller will provide, both Ms. Rabias-Napoletano and Sharon Stiller will provide an update about their work. This is an informational report.
Thank you. Morning or afternoon, wherever we are. I want to report to you that I am grateful for the individuals appointed by President Napolitano and who have accepted to volunteer in a review on the issues of ageism on the New York legal community. Fortunately, all the volunteers are a group of serious thinkers who have undertaken to truly understand the social and economic impacts of the absence of senior experienced attorneys in the workforce, as well as bias on young lawyers. And as such, they have sought to find what, if any, solutions the New York State Bar Association might get behind in support of necessary changes to deter ageism, not only as an organization, buy-in for its members, but as an advocate for changes in the law. The group first sought to determine how to define ageism for the purpose of the defined mission. Though, given the abundance of studies and other reports already offering evidence that ageism actually does exist, we accepted the premise. An example is the conclusive studies by the ABA, which spurred them to make certain changes within their organization and recommendations for others, such as the creation of a group called Senior Attorneys Group with Experience, Enthusiasm, Energy, Excellence, under the acronym SAGE. Many of us who are already seniors know that prejudice and discrimination against older adults, including those in the legal profession, is real. Each individual in our group took a few minutes initially to voice their personal experiences and what motivated them to join in on this working group. Therefore, our group easily came to agree that ageism is the last and maybe the most serious DEI frontier, because everyone ultimately can get old. And if they do, they will likely become part of a class that feels the effects of being discriminated against, unless something is proactively done to deter it and embrace the real value and contribution of legal professionals at each stage of life. So, for the purpose of the report, we did not seek to prove the premise of ageism, but rather accepted that ageism exists, although we did try to incorporate the relevant objective evidence available to us. While we did, however, allude to the causes of ageism as a complex interplay of many factors, we mindfully chose not to journey too far down that path. Just for some background, this is not the New York State Bar Association's first crack at ageism. A special task force gathered to examine these issues sometime around 2007, wherein they also noted the complexity of the issues and limited their recommendations to removing mandatory retirement in the legal profession. The New York State Bar Association thereafter also formed a committee to educate its members and offer recommendations on eradicating ageism. We believe these former working groups anticipated that there would be continuing efforts to deter ageism. So, except for the purpose in the report where discussing causation is necessary to support or form guideposts for understanding our recommendations, we did not elaborate on the social impetus. In any event, where this report does head is into areas we believe offered us the most efficient opportunity, given this limited amount of real estate, to affect change. So we have attempted to examine or review upon or touch upon the following: the detriment of ageism on the legal community as it relates to economics, health, and the overall quality of life implications. We looked at the impact of ageism as it pertains to younger attorneys as well. We sought to present information on its importance, given the detriment to society, both socially, economically, including the cost of losing the transfer of knowledge. We discuss where the legal community itself misses the mark on deterring ageism and even violates the law in some of its accepted practices. And of course, an understanding of the current state of the laws, the burden of proof, the difficulties and the failures of the law, including the creative ways laws are skirted, which motivated our change recommendations. So far, we have met several times. We have near completed the first draft. Although we believe more statistical information about our own population and more anecdotal evidence may still be necessary to confirm the extent of these issues, as well as finding measurable ways to determine the success of actions that do seek to deter ageism. Therefore, we anticipate having recommendations for the bar, both in best practices and legislative, some of the simplest, which include for the New York State Bar Association to specifically promote more intergenerational learning opportunities, and to completely divest itself of intra-organization labels that allude solely to age, like young or senior lawyer sections, changing them to new or experienced lawyers instead. For New York State Bar members and other legal employers, to remove references that incorporate topped-out hiring brackets, for example, the maximum number of years of experience or top-year graduating class, as it sets an arbitrary ceiling and a role per se discrimination that appears to have become well-accepted practices. For lawmakers to consider changes not only to the existing hurdles improving ageism, but address the emerging issues associated with digital ageism. The rise in artificial intelligence is increasing the difficulty of proving employers' actions were motivated by age, are not legitimate or intentional from direct evidence that is generally available. Patterns across multiple instances without regulations that provide for increased transparency or access to such data makes it near impossible to detect nonetheless proof. Thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to presenting our final report in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to your next report. Mr. Alcott.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee for examining this extremely important topic, and to our president for creating such a committee. When I was president, age discrimination was one of the major issues I addressed, and I hope you will read the many articles and speeches I gave on this subject. And the House did adopt policy on it, and please advert to those, to inform you in your work. Age discrimination is rampant in our legal system and in our profession. In the legal system, there's only one significant position that is age limited, and that is our state court judges. Governors, senators, presidents, cabinet members, no age limits, but judges, we have a limit. It should be ended, in my view. And in our profession, mandatory age-based retirement has disappeared in most aspects of society. Indeed, it's unlawful in most aspects, of our society. But in the legal profession, it still exists, and there are reasons, legal reasons for that, that I hope you'll address and that we'll try to remove. And as you mentioned, I was very glad to hear it works both ways. There's also discrimination against younger lawyers. I mean, we define our lawyers by their age, in effect. I mean, did you ever go to a fourth-year dentist, or hear a sermon from a fifth-year clergyman? No, but lawyers is a second-year associate or 30, and we don't want that person on the case. We need someone with more gray hair. You heard that? So the discrimination works in all ways. Please examine the issue. Thank you. I look forward to your report.
Thank you. Next, we have a report. Late breaking comment from Mr. Skidelsky.
Get up quick enough. I was struck by the remark about the labels and references. And I personally dig the idea of like changing the name of groups that say senior lawyers to experienced lawyers. I note we have in our association a section that used to be called senior lawyers. I now think it's called 50 plus. So I would like to toss out that suggestion to whoever would like to follow up on it, that perhaps we change that name to experienced lawyers. That's all.
Thank you. Seeing no others at the microphones, we will turn to our next item, which is a report and recommendation from the Committee on the Civil Practice Law and Rules, past President Sharon Stern Gerstman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee on Civil Practice Law and Rules has for many, many years made recommendations for changes to the CPLR. They used to only be presented to the Executive Committee, but someone in their judgment felt that all of you would enjoy the fun of the CPLR as well. And so this comes before the House for approval. I would start by moving the report in the materials on behalf of the committee. Okay, if I can get the clicker to work.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, so here on the screen, I hope everybody is close enough to a screen to see it, is the current law regarding the time a defendant has to appear in an action. That means in response to the service of the summons and complaint or summons with notice, whether they answer, make a motion, move for the service of a complaint, or enter what is called a notice of appearance, it is determined, the number of days that they have to do so is determined by the method of service. At the same time, whether or not the plaintiff has a requirement to file proof of service varies also based upon the method of service. This proposal is to make these uniform and we think fairer. And let me go through this chart just to give you an idea of how complex it is. As a defendant, for you to even figure out how the plaintiff thinks the plaintiff has served you is going to determine how much time you think you have to respond and when that time begins to run. So the first item is personal delivery within the state of New York. That's the process server hands the summons and complaint directly to the defendant. In that case, the defendant has 20 days to respond, measured from the date of service, and there's no requirement for the proof of service. If the personal delivery is outside the state of New York, which is permitted in certain situations that I'll go into in a different CPLR lesson if you'd like someday, that is also measured from the date of service, but the defendant has 30 days to respond, and again, no proof of service need be filed. The next is what are called leave and mail and nail and mail. Leave and mail can be chosen by the process server without any other showing. It means leaving the summons and complaint with a person of suitable age and discretion at the actual business or actual residence of the defendant and simultaneously mailing a copy by first-class mail to the defendant. Leave and mail requires a showing of due diligence in making a delivery either directly or to a person of suitable age and discretion, and it requires the process server to specify all the tries that the process server made in order to do that, but then it allows the process server to attach the summons and complaint to the door of the actual residence or place of business of the defendant and simultaneously mail. In both of those cases, there is a requirement of filing the proof of service within 20 days of the completion of both acts of service, and that the number of days to respond is 30 days, but it's measured not from the date of service, but it's measured from 10 days after the filing of the proof of service. Complicated and not easy necessarily to figure out exactly when the time begins to run, and obviously this results in a lot more time for this particular type of service. If you are serving a partnership, you do so by making personal service, on any member of the partnership, any partner, or if you can't do that, you are allowed to serve the partnership office. And this provision is very much like the leave and mail and nail and mail. There is a requirement of proof of service. It's 30 days. It doesn't run till 10 days after the filing of the proof of service. If you're doing personal delivery on an agent, and by the way, this includes the Secretary of State, then the rule is that there's no proof of service necessary, and that it's 30 days measured from the service upon the Secretary of State or any other agent that's been specified by the defendant. If you can't effect service any other way, you can go before the court and make an ex parte motion, and the court can allow you a specialized type of substituted service. We've had varied things like service upon the insurance company. We've had service by email. We've had service by Facebook. There have been a variety of situations that the court has determined might be the best way to give notice to the defendant. And in that case, again, there's no requirement that you file proof of service, that you've complied with the court order, and there's 30 days that's again measured directly from the date of service. So we have this very complicated system here that isn't necessarily fair because the areas where there is extra time include the leave-in mail and mail-in mail and service on a partnership office. And there doesn't seem to be a good explanation as to why these were singled out, both for the requirement of the proof of service and for the extra 10 days from the filing of the proof of service before the time to respond to appear begins to run. Going over again the filing of the proof of service, it's not required under Section 306, which deals with proof of service. It's only required in those sections that I've already mentioned with respect to service. And in CPLR 3215. CPLR 3215 is a motion for default judgment. And for most situations, for the first time you have a requirement of filing that proof of service is when you are seeking a default judgment against the defendant. The failure to provide proof of service, even though it's specified in 308(2) and 4, is not a jurisdictional act. Even though the language of 308(2) and 4 says that service is not complete until 10 days after the filing of proof of service, there's been a significant amount of case law that for purposes of 306B, and now 306B, what is that? That's that with combination of 304, how you start a lawsuit. So CPLR 304 says lawsuit is commenced by filing the summons and complaint in the clerk's office in the appropriate county, followed up by service as required by 306B within 120 days of the filing. There's been significant case law that in the cases of leave-in mail and mail-in mail, service is complete at the completion of both acts for purposes of 306B. So there's no jurisdictional effect currently with respect to the filing of a proof of service. But I promise you, there's an awful lot of case law out there about that because there's confusion because of the language of 308(2) and 4. And finally, the lack of any requirement that a plaintiff file proof of service is prejudicial to defendants who are trying to figure out how and when they are supposed to respond to the summons and complaint. Without knowing what a plaintiff thinks has been the method of service, it's very difficult to figure that out. So here is our proposal. The first is to eliminate the language in 308(2) and 4 and 310B and C to remove that language about when service is complete 10 days after the filing of the proof of service. The second is to provide a standard 30 days, regardless of the method of service, measured from the completion of all acts of service. The third is to require filing a proof of service within 10 days of the completion of all acts of service, regardless of the method of service. And fourth, to make clear, however, that that filing requirement is not jurisdictional, but it's required at least 10 days before a defendant is in default, can be the subject of a default motion, or have a default judgment entered upon failure to appear. There was a question yesterday, by the way, about how to treat defendants that are served by service on the Secretary of State. We know that there's a significant delay very often between service of the Secretary of State and that notice getting to the defendant. I promise you there are a lot of CPLR groups that are working very hard to fix that. The problem generally lies with backlog in the Secretary of State's office. But one thing that I will reassure you is that there is a provision in 3215 that requires that if you serve a defendant by serving the Secretary of State, you cannot take a default judgment against that defendant unless you have already mailed a copy of the summons and complaint directly to the defendant. So at least defendants should be getting some notice of it and can act accordingly with respect to appearing. Yes, that's what's required. There's one other little problem, and that is that 306B does not give the court any right to dismiss the action against parties that were never served. And courts sometimes want to clean up the caption and not have it confusing to jurors who may see the caption on a verdict sheet. But they have no right under current law to make a motion. They have to await the motion of a party. Sometimes parties are not motivated to make the motion. And so we would also, our proposal would be to amend 306B to allow the court to make such a motion on notice to all the parties who have appeared. And now I'm happy to take any questions or I guess I turn it back over to Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for that report. I do think we do have someone approaching with a question. Please identify yourself, your constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Bart Eagle. I'm a delegate, a New York City Bar Association delegate to the House. I'm also a member of State Bar's ComFed section and the Dispute Resolution section. I've served on that executive committee. My comments are not made on behalf of City Bar, but I do sit on the Council on Judicial Administration, which is comprised of judges and attorneys, and these comments are consistent with the views of the Council and other City Bar committees. We thank the committee, I thank the committee for the work that they did and agree with many of the recommendations, particularly the requirement that proof of service be filed in every case. However, I do not agree with the recommendation that proof of service be filed before service is complete in leave and mail or nail and mail situations. And in fact, I think that could be very, very harmful to defendants and to and could provide or create an access to justice issue. If a proof of service is not timely filed by a plaintiff, a defendant who perhaps did not receive the mailing or claims he or she did not receive it or did not keep the envelope so could not see a postmark, that defendant would not know when his deadline to appear is. He would have no idea when service is completed, would not know when he would have to appear. This actually is far more complex and would create far more confusion than the rule attempts to solve. Now, I know that there is the new filing requirement, but there is no enforcement mechanism. What happens if a plaintiff does not file within 10 days? That defendant can't, that plaintiff can wait 20 days, 30 days, 40 days before it actually files the proof of service. In that instance, the time for the defendant to answer may have run or may be limited to 10 days from that time. There's no reason for that. So we would ask that provision, that proposed change be deleted. Also, City Bar had recommended that the proof of filing be the trigger point for when time to answer, time to appear runs, not from when service is complete. It is far simpler. It is very, very clear. If simplicity is the goal, that would provide it. And also, last point, it would actually incentivize plaintiffs to timely file the proof of service because they would want to start the time for a defendant to appear as soon as possible. Thank you.
Would you
If
care
I
to
can
res-
respond to those, and we did receive comments from the City Bar committee that the delegate referred to. So first of all, let me address the last question, and that is making basically the filing of the proof of service an act of service for all purposes. I think it's very important to remember that we not only represent defendants, and there are not only defendants' lawyers in the room, there are plaintiffs' lawyers in the room too. And our committee very carefully weighed the views of both the defendants and the plaintiffs. One of the problems you may not be aware of is plaintiffs very often wait weeks, months for the proof of service to come back from their process servers. This is not something necessarily within the control of the plaintiff's lawyer. And the delay in having any triggering, despite the fact that the defendant may have received that summons and complaint by personal delivery or by delivery to the defendant's spouse, followed up by a mailing, they have it, they know it, but to delay it in a great deal of time would not, for service to be complete, would not be helpful. And it would create havoc with respect to following 306B. If you were not able to file your proof of service within the 120 days following the filing of the summons and complaint because the defendant was ditching service, and by the time you finally effected service, there are only a few days left on the 120 days, you would be faced with the dismissal of the lawsuit if we made filing the proof of service an act of the service itself. And so those are the reasons that the suggestion by the city bars was very carefully thought about, but rejected. We wanted to strike a balance between what's good for the plaintiffs, what's good for the defendants, with respect to the 10-day requirement. And we realize there are a lot of times the plaintiff won't be able to comply with the 10-day requirement, but it means to change the culture, to start getting proofs of service in every single case. It's going to take a while for it to be a regular practice. We don't want to unduly hurt those who aren't necessarily up on CPLR changes immediately. And we want to make sure that we're fair to everybody. And keep in mind, the new provisions that we're putting in before being able to take a default are much, much more protective of defendants than was the case under the current law. So we are making sure that that proof of filing has to be filed, that proof of service has to be filed at least 10 days before you can even move for default judgment. So I think on balance, we think that this is the fairer approach, and I urge you to support the report and resolution.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions for Past President Gerstman? Anyone online? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. We will now take a vote. I will note for you that at the meeting yesterday, the executive committee did vote in favor of adopting the report and recommendations. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion, depending on the online vote. Well, regardless of the outcome, thank you for the work on this. And the motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we have the co-chairs of the Committee on Membership, Helen Naves and Michelle Wildgrube, will provide an update on membership engagement and retention efforts.
Good morning. I'm here in person. Helen is going to be appearing from Brazil, so she will be doing the second half of our presentation. Today, we're going to be talking about where we stand with membership. We're also going to give an update on the sections, and membership. We'll talk about marketing and education. And then we're going to talk about social media sharing, because we have found that that is one of the best ways to attract new members and to attract some of our newer attorneys as well. So for the update, I do have slides. Let's see. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start with, we're going to go to the next slide. We're going to start with the updates that we made when transitioning to the new model. If we could, thank you. So the first thing is we got rid of that dreaded drop date. How great is that, right? You may remember, if you've sat through reports here, where we would hit March 31st and we'd say, okay, now's the drop. And we'd say, well, what do you mean? Well, that meant that we had a grace period essentially of 3 months where members were encouraged to re-up their membership, to pay their dues. And then when they didn't, they would be dropped. And so we would see sort of this cliff of membership. So that has, with the new model, been eliminated, which I think is a great thing. It means that membership is now on a rolling basis. So when you renew your membership, you are renewed for 12 months from the date of your renewal. It essentially eliminates a grace period that was occurring, where people were getting 15 months of membership before they renewed or rejoined. So I think that that is a very good thing. And it does, though, affect how we look at numbers. So that's why I'm spending a little time on that. So right now, if you, after January 31st, if you didn't renew, you are now rejoining. So again, with that drop period, we would see numbers, and we would see people that we know are active in the association not renewing their membership. My guess is it was at the bottom of a bill pile, possibly in, my administrator's pile of work to do, and it just got pushed to the bottom. But with a reminder, people would always renew. So now that's going to happen a lot quicker. So all members now are going to be anniversary based. If you remember before, you're on the calendar year, but if you are a new member, say you joined today, today would be your anniversary date. This benefits us because we have now continuous recruitment and enrollment all year long. It helps our membership team incredibly because they don't have to prorate memberships when somebody joins in October or July. If you join in October or July, that's your membership year then. So I think that that's great. It's great for revenue for the association as well. We are have internal efforts going on to continue to focus on targeting various member segments, such as new members, categories of members, members who are renewing, paid members, and free members. Moving forward, we are going to now focus on paid versus free members. So these are the numbers you've really been waiting for. So we have 44,790 total members. Of that, 30,523 are paid, 14,267 are free. So just as a reminder, free members are law students and newly admitted attorneys. So as of Tuesday, we waited till the very end to submit our report because we wanted to give you the most up-to-date numbers. We are tracking approximately 5% behind in total paid members. That's 1,560 members. And I believe that that is due to the 2-month change in the drop period. I think we will recoup those numbers as we usually did. And once we recoup them, then people will be on, again, this new basis of when you renew to when you renew, as opposed to a calendar year or any other type model. So just to compare to last year, we are approximately 8.5% behind in total paid members. So I do think that that is some progress. And again, I also think we are going to make it up, and we are going to make it up quickly because the people that were used to that 3-month grace period are now on the new system. And I think we can easily make up 1,560 members. We are also going to grow, I am sure, as well, because we have a great product here at NYSBA, right? We have a wonderful organization with so many benefits. So if we can go to the next slide, we're going to talk about membership sales. So currently we have $10,583,484 in membership sales. I do want to note that that should not be confused with revenue. Revenue is reported out by accounting and the treasurer based on accounting processes and when the money is recognized and gets paid to the association. However, there is really good news with regard to revenue. We have currently, with the new model, 15,729 members on auto renewal. This was one of the benefits that we felt would occur when we switched to the model, because auto renewal means that people will just continue to auto renew. We do not have to send out new notices. They are going to be renewing their membership with the credit card that we have on file. We think that this will help to mitigate the amount of work and effort that goes into renewals. And I would just note that 15,729 members on auto renewal is an increase of almost tenfold over what we had on auto renewal last year. So the word is out. People can see the convenience of being able to have this on an auto renewal system, much like you do for all of those streaming services that you have at home, and many other services. I also want to take a minute to talk about our CLE department and the effect we believe this is having on CLE. So, as you may know, the new model includes so many great things, right? 2-section memberships, CLE, an all-access pass to all the CLE online, all-access pass to the forms that we have online, all-access pass to the books we have online. It's just amazing how much is included. I sound like a knife salesperson in our new membership model. And I think it's going really well on that front. I will tell you, CLE numbers are amazing. So I'm really excited that I get to present for CLE right now, because really they deserve so much credit for putting out so much great work. I say I'm a NYSBA CLE super fan. I think that we have the best CLE. So the numbers: webinar registrations year to date, first quarter. So not year to date, first quarter, January through March. Webinar registrations, 7,254 webinar registrations. That's an increase of 3,860 from the same period in 2024. Webinar certificates issued, 4,732, an increase of 2,054 from 2024. And on-demand certificates issued, 8,533 on-demand certificates issued, which is an increase of 2,874 from 2024. So more people are seeing the great work that this organization does with regard to CLE and what we put out there. And I have to say, I think that as people renew their memberships, I think over the next 2 years, as people renew their licenses, we are going to see an uptick, because why not go to the New York State Bar Association for the best CLE you can get that's now included with your membership? So I think that that's really a wonderful addition, again, to membership and to the services that we offer as an organization. I am also a super fan of the sections, and Helen's going to talk about sections. So Helen, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yes. Thank you so much, Michelle. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Speaking of bright spots, let's talk a little bit about the section numbers. So since the beginning of the new membership model,
Helen,
overall,
Helen,
yes.
you're coming in a little loud. We're going to either adjust the volume or ask you to.
Okay, so let me try to lower a little bit. Is it better?
Not yet.
I don't think I can.
We're working on it here. It's at our end.
Sorry.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'll
no,
try
no.
to pick. Okay.
It's not you. Just give us a couple seconds to adjust.
Okay. It should be a difference between
Yes,
my
we're
mic and
good.
yours.
We're ready to go now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
No. So overall, section membership has increased by 20%. If you recall, only 50% of paid NISBA members were also members of at least one section in the recent past. 27 out of 28 sections increased their membership, and those numbers, as Michelle mentioned, should continue to grow because we are still in the process of renewing members and getting new members throughout the year of 2025. So in terms of revenue, the revenue for section has increased by 14.6% over last year, with sections generating a little over $1.2 million based on the new royalty rate payments. 25 out of 28 sections increased their revenue, with the remaining 3 sections showing an average deficit of about $2,000, which NISBA is making up the difference, as you may recall. So going to the next slide, we want to remind you all that ongoing marketing campaigns will be launched on a continuing basis throughout the year, led by NISBA Assistant Director of Marketing. So with an updated marketing strategy and our new anniversary-based model, new member recruitment will be continuing on a daily basis throughout the year. And we are anticipating ongoing growth each and every week. As Michelle mentioned, I think we have a great opportunity not only within the association, but also with new members. Going to the next slide, we're also working on enhancing our awareness and education plan for existing members, emphasizing the new benefits that members receive, such as the 2 sections and CLE with all online programs, and ensuring that they're all taking full advantage of all these great benefits. As, believe it or not, some members may not be still aware of the changes, which is, we think it's quite normal because we have so many members, as Michelle just showed you the numbers. That being said, we recognize member retention is equally important, if not more important, than recruiting new members. So a healthy focus will be placed on improving emails communications with members and maximizing awareness, their awareness of all the memberships, benefits, and resources available to all of us. And finally, going to the next slide, which is something fun that I would like to invite you to, all of you, if you are not on yet, please join us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We are the association. I mean that we as members, and most important here, you and all of us as leaders of the organization, we help a lot by promoting, saying words, especially on social media, because we have learned that it's really effective. So we have been working on a very strong campaign on social media, and we'll continue to do that because we understand that it's a healthy amount of our marketing efforts take place. So we need to continue to help to spread the word on our activities and promoting our new membership model. So please, each of you go online, do individually likes, shares the content, comment a post, we see that if all of us do that, all of our connections see what we're doing, and so many folks are going to learn more about the association. So a few seconds of your time here and during the week, we can make a huge difference with our efforts, especially when it comes to peer-to-peer sharing. So please join us and help us to share. And this is it, and we're here if anybody has any question or comments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Before you go on social media, I have another report and recommendation of the Health Law section and Committee on Disability Rights, which will be presented by Mark Houston.
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay, and slides, can they be queued up? There we go. Okay, so my name is Mark Houston. I am the chair-elect of the Health Law section and presenting this report and recommendations from both the Health Law section and the association's Disability Rights Committee. It is about two different laws governing the same subject. And next slide, please. And that subject is healthcare decisions for people who do not have capacity to make those decisions. The first law, which is actually technically the second law, is the Family Healthcare Decisions Act, or FHCDA. That applies to everyone who has not designated someone through a healthcare proxy to make decisions for them. And the second law, which is actually the earlier of the two, is the Healthcare Decisions Act for people with intellectual disabilities, which applies, of course, to people with intellectual disabilities. Next slide, please. These two laws are very similar. They both have very similar processes. They have a bedside process for determining incapacity. They set a priority list for people who would be responsible for making those decisions when someone does not have capacity. They set a standard for those decisions in each case, including clinical criteria, a rigorous process for resolving disputes, and then a whole bunch of process requirements about that, notice requirements, documentation, that sort of thing. But in each of these categories, there's actually small differences between them. Next slide. And this is a problem. As you can imagine, when these decisions need to be made, it is more often than not in the case of life-sustaining treatment at the end of someone's life, you are talking about them being in a hospital or other clinical setting, and you're relying on clinicians and counsel to those clinicians to know both laws. And candidly, the Family Healthcare Decisions Act, FHCDA, is much more well-known, and the nuances of HCDA for people with intellectual disabilities, simply not as well known. Next slide. Now, why do these two things exist? It was not so much a policy choice that was made than it was an accident of history. And this is the story. So the bill to create the Family Healthcare Decisions Act was first introduced in 1993. And as you can imagine, very controversial, especially to the extent you're dealing with life-sustaining treatment, was not passed for many, many years, leading to situations where everyone knew that this was something that needed to be addressed legislatively, had not been addressed, made for very complicated situations for people who had to face these situations. And there was a case in particular in Syracuse, the decision was in 2002, regarding someone who was developmentally disabled from birth and was essentially being kept alive because the standard at the time, which was set by case law, simply did not allow any other decision to be made. So at that point, the legislature said, well, look, recognizing there are these larger issues around this larger bill, can we at least address the easiest cases where someone never had capacity to make these decisions? As you can imagine, when someone used to have capacity and no longer does, it's a much more complicated analysis because you're talking about, okay, here's what I think they would have wanted. Here's what I heard them say one time. But when someone has never had capacity, obviously they are in an unwinnable situation, absent some kind of standard. So that's when the Healthcare Decisions Act for people with intellectual disabilities, called something else at the time, was passed and was implemented subsequently, and in general was successful. Meanwhile, that happened in 2002. Then in later, I think it was 2010, actually, the Family Healthcare Decisions Act was passed. But because people in the intellectual disability community were so comfortable with the prior law, they were carved out of the Family Healthcare Decisions Act. And that is really what has created the situation we have today. Not really a situation that was done intentionally, mostly an accident of history. Next slide, please. So this issue was addressed by the Department of Health's Task Force on Life and the Law, which is a group that is meant to address sort of these larger moral healthcare issues. And they put out a report in 2016 that was the product of interviews with key stakeholders in the space, a rigorous analysis, once again, of both laws and the differences between them. In particular, next slide, please. They put together a table that analyzed all of the differences between the laws and then drafted legislation to harmonize those laws. Next slide. And there was throughout a recognition that you cannot treat people with intellectual disabilities in exactly the same way as you treat everyone else. They do deserve special protections. In fact, there is an organization, the Mental Hygiene Legal Services, which is a statutory organization that specifically has the authority to protect the rights of people with developmental disabilities. They clearly had to have a role no matter what. So you couldn't just delete one law and insert the other. Next slide, please. So the bill that they drafted is an attempt. What it does is essentially, on a mechanical basis, eliminates the Healthcare Decisions Act for people with intellectual disabilities, but overlays it into the Family Healthcare Decisions Act, which is the better known law. It was drafted by Robert Swidler, who many here know, very active in this space regarding healthcare decisions generally and end-of-life decisions specifically, and Dr. Pat Bomba, also very active in the space, really the primary architect behind the Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment law, which is very important to anyone who practices in this area. So they know their stuff. They put this bill together. It has not actually been introduced yet, but what they asked the Health Law Section and the Disability Rights Committee to do was to review it ourselves, and we did. And next slide, please. Next slide. So we moved it through our process. It actually started with the Legislative Committee of the Health Law Section, ultimately went to the Executive Committee of the Health Law Section. They approved it very strongly, worked with the Disability Rights Committee on some changes that they thought were necessary. And so the bill that you see within the report is the product of all that work. And both the Health Law Section and the Disability Rights Committee support them strongly and would ask for this body to support it as well. And that is it. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Alcott.
Thank you. If your only purpose was uniformity, then it would be a simple matter to use the older law and merge the Family Act into the act that governs people with disabilities. So there's a broader purpose at work here, and it's clear, if I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, but it's clear that the impact of this legislation would be to reduce the levels of protection for people with intellectual disabilities, to remove life support for those people. Am I right about that?
No. Absolutely not. And in
Okay,
fact, it was
well, good. Reassure me then.
sure. So two reasons not to do it that way, simply folding the larger law
No,
into the
but
smaller one.
my question
Yeah.
is, if we approve this and if the legislature approves it, would the impact be to reduce the level of protection for eliminating the life support for intellectually disabled people?
No, because the protections that are in the current law are essentially being imported into the larger law, but specifically applicable to people with intellectual disabilities. And the reason why we did it that way rather than going backwards is the law for people with intellectual disabilities was presented in the context of an Article 17 guardianship for those people, which is not, obviously wouldn't apply to the general public. So it would not, we couldn't just take non-intellectually disabled people and put it into that category. And the other thing is the Family Healthcare Decisions Act is the one that people are more comfortable with and familiar with. So adding it into there makes it easier.
Yeah, well, that's hospital staff, but for, I mean, my perspective is concern for the possibility of abuse, of the process being abused, so that a person is not sufficiently protected. I'm hearing from you that I shouldn't be concerned, so I'm not concerned. Thank
No,
you.
and I can say from experience. So I was involved. I was actually working for the Senate. I was actually one of the people that drafted the original 2002 law. So in some ways, it's my baby that's being changed here. But I can tell you the hours and hours spent on how to structure those protections, and the hours and hours spent on how to successfully import those protections into this new law leave me very comfortable with the fact that people are accurately and completely protected.
Thank you. Is there any other comment, question, or discussion? Anything online? All right. Thank you, Mr. Houston. May I have a motion to approve the report and recommendations of the Health Law Section and Committee on Disability Rights? For your information, at its meeting yesterday, the Executive Committee voted in favor of the report and recommendations. We will now take a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Thank you very much for your work. Next, Professor Shelby Green and Mary Maloney will present the report and recommendations of the Housing Court Subcommittee of the Real Property Section. We are just barely on time now.
Good morning. I'm Shelby Green, the chair of the Real Property Law Section, here with my colleague, Mary Malone, who is the co-chair of the Landlord and Tenant section, committee of that section. I set up this task force to prepare an assessment of the housing courts last July. And this report offers our assessment of a great amount of dysfunction in the courts and offers some prescriptions to map out a pathway toward correcting some of those problems. So it's not an exaggeration to say that the housing courts are in crisis. They were established decades ago to balance the interest of persons and families in need of housing, a very basic human need, against the interests of property owners in their property rights and investments. Despite a number of studies by commissioned by the former Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, the most recent one in 2018 assessing the state of the housing courts after its creation, it pointed out a lot of dysfunction and offered some prescriptions for repair. The dysfunctions not only persist, but they're growing. Next slide, please. So there are mounting volume of cases, roughly 150,000 new cases filed since the task force was created. And that on top of the 200,000 cases that were backlogged from the pandemic pause. And there's a Herculean task for judges. Each of the 55 housing court judges have as many as 60 cases on their calendar each day. And that means they can only spend up to 8 minutes per case in order to move that calendar along. Not the kind of situation that we would expect to generate justice. And then there are delays in adjudication of cases as well. From filing to initial court date, there are as many as 3 months. That is to get an index number to get the case on the calendar. And the disposition, litigants wait as much as a year. And despite the enactment of the Universal Access to Legal Services law some years ago, only about half of tenants are represented by counsel. Most property owners have counsel. There are a number of small property owners who represent themselves, but still only about half of tenants have counsel. And this is very distressing because the studies show that outcomes are improved when attorneys assist their clients in terms of keeping tenants in their homes and also generating ways that landlords can recover lost rent. So the costs to all from this dysfunction are just pervasive. Lost rent by property owners, for example, the typical rental being $2,000 a month and delay being a year, $24,000 over the course of a year. And even if the landlord is able to recover possession, that lost rent is virtually unrecoverable. And then there's housing insecurity and tenants living in uninhabitable conditions while they wait for a hearing before the judge. And even as some very neglectful landlords face arrest, the tenants are still suffering in those conditions. And then for the courts, overburdened courtrooms and services, personnel. And I think when people become very overburdened and weary, they become less efficient and I think less caring. And for all, the denial of rights by the institutions set up to vindicate their rights. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary to get a little bit more into the weeds of the problems in housing court.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you, Shelby. Let's see, can you move the slides ahead a couple, please? I believe. There we go, right there, please. Thank you. So as co-chair of the Landlord Tenant Committee, one of the most spirited discussions we have had is about the current state of the summary proceeding in the housing courts in New York City. Owners are upset, tenants are upset, and rightfully so. Even the Office of Court Administration, is frustrated, and the current system is really creating a tension-filled environment for all parties. The state of the law, we know RPAPL is up there for non-payments and holdovers, and it's a very short time frame. We have 10 days for a court date. In a holdover proceeding, not between 10 and 17 days. But that's not currently what is happening, as Shelby touched upon. The current state of the law is the current state of the summary proceeding is that it has gone from an efficient, expeditious process to one that is prolonged over months, up to a year before a disposition is resolved. Can we have the next slide, please? So what is happening is, and this is based on data that's been provided by the Office of Court Administration, thankfully, is that there are currently 55 judges. 5 new judges were appointed back in this past September. But the data reflects that as long as 5 months may elapse between the filing of a petition until the parties make their very first court appearance. And that is too much time, especially for a small property owner. Everyone thinks about the larger property owners, and they think that those owners can absorb the cost. And I can tell you, I represent property owners, nobody could absorb the cost. And for a tenant who's starting with a small amount of rental arrears, by the time they're getting into court, and those rental arrears have increased to something that seems almost insurmountable, and in some cases it might be. Next slide, please. The time for disposition on average is anywhere from 6 months to a year for a summary proceeding currently in the New York City courts. And the statistics will show you that most of these cases resolve in a non-payment proceeding. Most of these cases will be settled. In the Bronx, for instance, there were about 6,800 non-payments between July of 2023 through September of 2024. 6,700 of those were resolved by stipulation that were actually in the court file. So a great number of these matters settle. So we were tasked with looking at some of the causes and then coming up with some proposed solutions, and as I said, it creates a spirited debate because everybody has a different idea about how to resolve this issue. The next slide, please. So in speaking with OCA, we learned some of the various causes. COVID-19, the ERAP assistance and the abeyance caused by ERAP and the moratorium during COVID caused a lot of delays. There were legislative changes, universal access to legal services, the implementation of RPAPL 746 governing allocution of stipulations. The HSTPA was enacted. And then most recently, we have good cause eviction, and all of these create different avenues for litigation. So with that being said, they said it impacted the delays. One of the other things they noted was the NICEF electronic filing system. People would think that the NICEF electronic filing system would get things moving faster, and apparently it has not. It has had the opposite effect, and a lot of that has to do with shortage of personnel in the actual courthouse. People don't want to work remotely. People want to work remotely. They don't want to work in person any longer. So our proposed recommendations, next slide, please. We were looking for some, solutions that might be able to be implemented rather easily, or in our opinion. One was a separate non-payment part. Most of these cases settle. We thought if there's an instance where an answer is indicating they just want to pay their arrears, send it to a separate non-payment part where that can be resolved and you get that out of the system and then create enough time and effort and energy for other more complicated matters to be resolved. Next slide, please. The perhaps a court-led mediation part. This would allow for mediation and, in those situations where people do want to get resolved, and maybe that can clear up some of the backlog and let people resolve these matters. And then next slide, please. A separate part for allocution of stipulations. We also have a small owner's part, which is underutilized, and we can expand that. It's currently available for 1, 2, and 3 property family homeowners. We could expand that to 6 units or less and get that underway. Finally, last slide, please, is the legislative changes, increasing the number of judges. In the 2018 report, they proposed adding 10 judges. We just recently got 5 judges added in September. We're figuring approximately 10 to 15 judges. And then there's expanding existing spaces, but it all comes down to funding and for universal access to counsel, proper training, more counsel available for these legal programs. And those are our proposals in which to try and implement some of these changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a motion to approve the report and recommendations of the Housing Court Subcommittee of the Real Property Section?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is there a
I'm
time?
going to ask for discussion
Okay, I'm
after I have a
sorry.
motion. No, stay put. It takes a nanosecond. Okay. Is there any discussion?
So Sorry, this is my first time speaking at the mic. I've been in the House for a few years. And thank you very much. My name is Rezwanul Islam. I'm the appointed delegate. I'm an appointed delegate for the second department. I am the co-chair of the President's Committee on Access to Justice. I work with Kathleen, I work with Domenick, and previously I worked with Dick Lewis. And I just want to say everything you guys do is amazing. I really appreciate it. I wanted to also thank the real property section for their work on this report. But I would like to say that I'm going to be intending to request that we table this report for
So if you have-
for the following reasons.
Okay, if you have comments or questions, that's now, and then after
Okay.
everybody else has a chance to comment. If
I just
there's a-
wanted to say
If
from
there's a
the
procedural
yeah.
motion, I'll ask you to make that
Right,
at
right.
the end.
motion after comments. No, I just wanted to make sure that I just wanted to put my cards on the table. So, I think the report is extensive and can have a huge impact on the New York City Housing Court, but also with some of the changes to the RPAPL, it can have impacts to the entire state. I also appreciate that so I'm the Deputy Executive Director at Legal Services of Long Island, and I appreciate that my organization is mentioned favorably for the work that we're doing in Hempstead District Court. But I would also have loved the opportunity, and this speaks to my main point. I would love the opportunity to participate or to be part of this report in a more meaningful way. I feel like the report is not a complete picture. As during its drafting process, it was members of the President's Committee on Access to Justice, the Committee on Legal Aid, and dozens of providers of landlord-tenant work in New York City and hundreds of practitioners around the state that do legal services work were not able to be part of the process of how this report might be impacting their work. I feel like to make the report a true collaboration of the committees of this bar association and of all the stakeholders of our community, that tabling the report for full participation by all interested stakeholders and parties with a commitment to bring this report back as quickly as possible would be, I think, in everyone's favor, in the Bar Association's favor, before it becomes a policy of the Bar Association.
Do you have any requested changes or amendments?
I think no specific changes and amendments. I think it's just how the report came together is where my
Thank you.
comments
Does I'll ask you to hold off on making your motion. We have two people online that would like to.
Yes. I also know that Adrian Holder is going to be speaking about the impact on New York City housing courts.
Okay, Ms. Holder, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, colleagues. I'm Adrian Holder. I'm the Chief Attorney of the Civil Practice of the Legal Aid Society in New York City. I'm also board member of the New York Legal Services Coalition, and I'm also a member of the Committee on Legal Aid, as well as the President's Committee on Access to Justice. And although I can agree with the presentation of the challenges and the lack of access to justice for tenants in housing court, I must express deep concern and disappointment regarding presentation of a report on the restructuring of housing court at this particular time, because it has not been shared with nor vetted by the legal services providers who comprise the majority of the attorneys who are regularly practicing in that forum. To my knowledge, the report was never circulated through the Real Property Law Section Digest and was only recently posted for comment. It's both surprising and troubling that the very practitioners who represent the majority of litigants, often low income and unrepresented tenants, were neither consulted nor invited to participate in the development of this report. Legal services organizations have been on the front lines of housing court for decades and have played a foundational role in the development and expansion of landlord-tenant practice in New York. The proposals as presented, currently as presented, threaten to undermine our ability to effectively represent tenants and will likely have far-reaching negative impacts on access to justice in the housing court. To proceed with such a significant restructuring proposal without the input of those most familiar with the day-to-day workings and challenging of housing court is a serious oversight, and it calls into question the legitimacy of the process and the report's conclusions, and fails to reflect the realities faced by those who rely on this court for fundamental fairness and housing stability. So for those reasons, I strongly urge that at the very least, this report be tabled until legal services providers, the broader tenant bar, and tenant communities have had a meaningful opportunity to review, respond to, and shape the recommendations. Restructuring of this magnitude demands transparency, inclusive engagement, and a process that centers all the voices of those most directly impacted. I appreciate the opportunity to address you all. I'm sorry I'm not there with you in person. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand your concern about the process. Do you have any substantive amendments or proposals?
Not at this time, but I would definitely love to be a part of the process because having read some of the report, I definitely think that there could be definitely there are some common areas of interest, but there are some others that I think could benefit from the more inclusive process of having the voices of the tenant bar and legal services providers included.
Thank you. I have another online. Good morning, Ms. Nicholson.
Good morning.
Sharon? Go
Good morning,
ahead.
everyone. Sorry I'm not there with you in person. My name is Karen Nicholson. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Elder Law and Justice. We are located in Buffalo, and I am a member of the 8th Judicial District House of Delegates members. I'm also going to echo the concerns that my colleagues in the legal services community have expressed. Although this is a New York City program, we have a robust tenant bar association through the New York Legal Services Coalition, of which I am a board member, as well as through COLA and the PCHA. When this report came out, I initially was texting my colleagues in those organizations to see if anybody had seen this or read it, and nobody had. So I urge this body to table this with Rez's motion and give us in the legal services community some time to weigh in, and particularly those of us on the COLA committee and PCAJ. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any substantive changes or amendments to propose?
No, I don't.
Okay. Ms. Gerstman, past President Gerstman is next.
Hi, Sharon Stern Gerstman, past president. I spent a considerable amount of time as attorney of the morning in housing court in Buffalo, where I represented a lot of tenants. And I can't say that that necessarily translates to the 5 boroughs. But I have 2 concerns. One is that if there are changes to the RPAPL, I have a concern if those changes will also not be restricted only to the New York City Housing Court, because I think you need to look at the housing courts around the state if they are going to be universal. I will tell you, in my experience, 60 cases for a judge sounds like a lot, but in my experience, 30 of them had non-appearing defendants. So it doesn't sound quite, there are a lot of parts that have 30 motions on for in a special term. That's not as overwhelming as perhaps it sounded. I also have some concerns with respect to a forced mediation. I was also on the ground floor of the forced mediations in residential foreclosure, having conducted them for Niagara and Orleans counties. And I can tell you that if you're worried about delay to landlords to be able to collect rent, going through that kind of process is going to add such a considerable delay that I really think that maybe either have it be only appointed by a court to a mediation process, or to have the tenants and landlord opt into it, but not to make it a mandatory mediation process. I think that that will be counterproductive to what you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the next, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that. Those were some substantive concerns.
Well, our report, as suggested, was to assess the state of affairs in the housing court and to develop a map for pathway toward correcting those areas of dysfunction. And by the association adopting the report, it's just an expression of their concern about the dysfunction. Of course, the details of the restructuring would have to be implemented by the courts and, of course, with all those participants who have an interest and a stake in the implementation. So we are certainly happy to engage with other stakeholders at that point. But we think the association could yet adopt the overall need for restructuring and developing of different programs as the association's policy.
Do you care to respond to past President Gerstman's specific comments about the compulsory mediation?
Yeah, I think that is something that could be worked out as well with the Office of Court Administration, whether or not it should be mandatory for all participants, or there could be a dollar amount on the amount sought to be claimed, or we might even consider in those cases opting in or out. But we think having the mediation in place would do well to address some of the delays that both landlords and tenants face. There are all kinds of different models for mediation around the country that the court could look to for designing one that is best suited for the various jurisdictions.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
In response to your commentary about the mediation, honestly, in my mind, the court-led mediation process where we're in court and the court says, hey, you know what, you guys might benefit from mediation, is probably one of the better solutions. Our report was designed to create ideas and generate some, chatter and get some things going here, because right now, the summary proceeding is a stagnant one. And I can assure you in New York City, it is just as we're describing it. It is in bad shape where, and not to anybody's fault. I think the Office of Court Administration is doing everything to the best that it is currently capable of. But we are lagging behind, and it gets worse every time. And try and explain that to your owner or your tenant.
Thank you. Mr. Skidelsky.
Hi, I'm Barry Skidelsky, current chair of the section caucus. First, I'd like to commend you guys for an excellent report. I do think you've achieved that goal of raising the problem and potential solutions. But I also believe that some of the concerns I've heard here rightly suggest that we should consider tabling. In part, I hear New York City versus New York State, especially if you're looking to change state statutes. I would like to suggest that if there is reconsideration of the report, or if not, before there's any movement towards suggesting legislation to the state, that a focus be increased on increased funding. I admire the work of the formerly known Nassau-Suffolk Legal Services Corporation. I'm on their email list. I think they do great work. I wish there was something like that in New York City. And if there was a possibility of somehow using that as a model or helping to expand that in New York City, recognizing the differences between New York City and the rest of the state, I think that would go a long way. And as far as the increased funding, absolutely more money for legal services agencies or providers, more money for right to counsel or universal service counsel. I myself personally experienced, I had trouble during COVID paying my rent. I went to court. I was told I qualified for right to counsel. Sorry, we don't have money or staffing. I'm going, listen, I'm a lawyer and I don't even understand this world. But thank God my case got resolved through the help of the one-shot deal from HRA. I think that the increased funding should not only go to legal services providers, but also to the one-shot deal program. And with that, I'll say nobody disagrees with the fact that there's systemic dysfunction, particularly in the New York City Housing Court. And I think that your report is a major step in the right way to address these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Markowitz.
Mike Markowitz, Vice President, 10th Judicial District. Want to clear up maybe some confusion and maybe to answer former President Gerstman's comment that yesterday I did propose a friendly amendment that was accepted concerning the issue for mandatory pre-filing mediation, and the friendly amendment was to add the language in the city of New York. So it would only deal, this statute would only deal with the city of New York and not Buffalo or Nassau or Suffolk County. So that's the only thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Keisha Williams from the 8th Judicial District. I am the Deputy Director of Neighborhood Legal Services, one of the largest legal services agency in Western New York. I want to sort of echo everything that's been said by everyone else about tabling this, because this conversation is obviously taking place with the backdrop of an availability and affordability housing crisis in the nation. And the state of New York has made significant investments in preventing evictions and creating housing stability across the state. Last year, the state provided, I think it was $1.15 billion for legal assistance and rental arrears assistance. So hasty changes to the process without considering how it would affect the rest of the state. For instance, Erie County, which in 2022, I think had the highest rate of evictions, second only to Kings County, without considering all the parties that will be affected, could inadvertently undermine the objective of state and all of the stakeholders. In addition, there was a requirement for having stakeholders at the first adjournment. While I think that does make sense, the report does not exactly say how or who will facilitate that. How do we get HRA? How do we get family services at the table before the first adjournment? So I just think that it should be tabled for more conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Lindenauer.
Good morning. Susan Lindenauer, a representative jointly of New York County Lawyers Association and City Bar. I rise with support for tabling, and I have a long background in civil legal services. I was the general counsel of the Legal Aid Society of New York City for many years, but I rise not because of that. I rise because I chaired the Committee on Families and the Law at this association, and we issued what I think still is a major report on racial discrimination and family court. That report was the work of our committee, but before we turned to the executive committee or the association for their consideration, we turned to the Legal Aid Committee, we turned to the Committee on Children and the Law, we turned to the Family Law section. I think you, as an important part of the association, need to do the same. And that is essentially what the people like Adrian Holder were suggesting. I really think the report will be improved by having the input of standing committees of this association. So I know that it may be too early to provide support for tabling, but I really think that that's the appropriate thing to do at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Lindenauer. We have another delegate. Could we ask the folks in the back to take their conversation outside? Who is it? Truff? Ms. Truff, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for this report. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank
So
you.
thank you. My name is Leslie Treff. I am the vice chair of the LGBTQ+ law section. I also am someone who does pro bono work in the L&T area in Manhattan. I'm a retired court attorney, also in Manhattan, who has worked in the housing court. And I'm standing, not really standing, I'm apologize for not being there. However, I needed to add my agreement that maybe this should be tabled. I just want to give a little bit of anecdotal experience here. In housing court, in the HP part specifically, there are two things. One is that the judges are not at all implementing any of the fines that are supposed to be in effect against landlords. And the other thing is that they are so overwhelmed. I have seen over and over again unrepresented tenants who are not treated with the courtesy or the concern that they should be treated. It's appalling. And we really need to do something about that. And money needs to be allocated for that more and more. I would like to, first of all, I'm appalled that the legal services was not a part of this. And, you know, I just really think that we need to rethink some of it and add some specific interests that I think legal services would be helpful in getting. Thank you.
Thank you. Past President James.
Seymour James, past president. I want to talk a little bit about the process, and I'm a little concerned. I'm also former attorney-in-chief at the Legal Aid Society in New York City. This report, although it says that it's just calling attention to the problems in housing court, which I think is very important, but the report also makes recommendations. And I don't think that we should be adopting any recommendations if the Legal Aid Committee, the President's Committee on Access to Justice, and other committees that have an interest in this issue were not consulted. So I think it's very important that those things be done before we take any action here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has comment or discussion or question of our presenters? Then it's time for Mr. Islam to make his motion, should he choose to do so. Yes, please. A motion to table is not debatable, so we will proceed on the motion when he makes it with a straight up and down vote.
I move to table this motion. I move to table this report.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? And the online tally? The motion to table has passed. So we'll revisit this issue at a next meeting. Thank you very much for your report.
Just invite those who would like some input in drafting the revised report to contact me or Mary Malone, and our addresses are in the materials, and we can plan a discussion to work in concerns and bring this matter back to the association as soon as possible. We just like to avoid the persistent delays, not only in the courtrooms, but in getting some movement by the courts and legislature to address the problems.
We'll do whatever we can to support the expeditious collaboration.
Thank you.
I'm hearing more conversation in the back. We're about to hear from an appellate division judge, so can we have quiet in the room? Our next item in the agenda is the report of the New York Bar Foundation, presented by Honorable Cheryl Chambers.
Good morning, everyone. 10 reports down and 1 to go. I am delighted, as always, to share with you some of the highlights of the ongoing work of the foundation and how it advances our shared goals. Our justice system feels more challenged and unstable than it has ever been in a very long time. I stand here convinced that it is within our power to make things better. And I believe many of you feel the same way too, because we are united by a common commitment to collective philanthropy and the cause of justice. Together, we are leveraging our resources and passion to address these challenges. Albert Einstein once said, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." Having said that, I am going to talk about the work of the foundation. Just last week, we hosted an annual meeting of the fellows via Zoom, at which many of you were present. During the meeting, we conducted some official business, including the re-election of officers, James Barnes as chair of the fellows, Don Dorr and Lauren Wackler as vice chairs of the fellows, and Susan Lindenauer as secretary. We are fortunate to benefit from their ongoing leadership, and I thank them for their service. During the meeting, we also approved the creation of a new circle of giving, the Visionary Circle. This special recognition honors fellows who have pledged $100,000 or more to the foundation, exemplifying their generosity and commitment to advancing our mission. We're establishing this new circle in response to the growing number of fellows pledging gifts of $100,000 or more, and that is amazing. We are also privileged that the Chief Administrative Judge, Joseph Zayas, was our guest speaker. He delivered a compelling address on the critical importance of the safeguarding of the independence of the judiciary and upholding the rule of law. He urged us as leaders of the bar, of the organized bar, to remain steadfast in our mission to ensure access to justice, especially during these dynamic times that the legal community is facing. In addition, during that meeting, we welcomed Tina Foster, a fellow and the executive director of Just Cause, a nonprofit organization providing civil legal services to low-income families in Rochester. Since 2012, the foundation has consistently funded Just Cause to support its pro bono programs. She described how our current grant provides support for the debt management counseling program. The purpose of the Just Cause presentation was to inform donors about their contributions and how their contributions are being used and the impact that they are making. Many of you in the House are fellows. The fellows are an integral part of the foundation's ability to deliver on our mission and to support organizations like Just Cause. As fellows, you hold a prestigious position that truly reflects our exemplary commitment to upholding the rule of law and providing equal access to justice. And when we think about how best to impact communities and truly make a difference in the lives of others, the grants that we award across the state are our direct means to do just that. At the February meeting of the Foundation's Board of Directors, we approved more than $668,000 in grants for nonprofit organizations which provide civil legal help and advocacy services to low-income New Yorkers. These grants will be distributed within 12 of the 13 districts in the state, serving hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers. In deciding where to invest grants, the board's grant review committee identified several urgent issues: eviction and housing preservation, access to quality education, economic security for persons made more vulnerable by discrimination, domestic violence, immigration, and veteran status. Based on these priorities, grants were awarded to nonprofits across various judicial districts. On the screen is a list of nonprofits awarded grants this year. Again, these are only a few examples of how your contributions are being used across New York State. When I began my report, I mentioned how the work of the foundation is in direct alignment with the mission and goals of the association. We have a strong history of collaborating to fund key association projects and initiatives. This year's grants have been allocated to the following association efforts listed here. And while impactful, we recognize that we can expand our reach through the grant process. As we grow our donations and fundraising capacity, we'll be able to do even more. As you know, the foundation is currently engaged in a comprehensive fundraising and donor engagement campaign. The goal of this campaign is to double the number of New Yorkers we can serve each year. We will accomplish this by exponentially growing our grants program while increasing annual and endowed support so we can broaden our impact. In addition, we will expand our scholarship and fellowships to support additional talented future leaders. While we are still in the quiet phase and we will not go public with the campaign until the fourth quarter of this year, we are already at 42% of the goal because of the generous support of 101 donors. Many of you here today have made this progress possible, and I thank you for your commitment to the foundation. We also owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to the sections of this association. The sections have been instrumental in making a significant contributions to the foundation. You have embraced the foundation and collaborated with our board to advance our fundraising campaign while also supporting scholarships and fellowship funds. I note that the public recognition of all contributions to the campaign will be given during the campaign's public phase. At present, we are still in the silent phase. With 2025 marking the foundation's 75th anniversary, we are deep in planning our gala for November of 2025 at the iconic Gotham Hall in New York City. It's going to be a show-stopping event that you won't want to miss. Thank you for the time you afforded me this morning and for the ongoing support for so many of you. A sincere thank you to my colleagues on the Foundation Board of Directors. Some of them, or many of them actually, are here, for their tireless commitment to our work, as well as those leaders on our campaign executive committee, also here, for their steadfast advocacy among our supporters and potential supporters. Last, I'd like to acknowledge, and I saw they're in the back. I saw part of the foundation team, Deb, give a royal wave, Oswald that has worked tirelessly for many years. And I'd like to introduce you to Danielle Holland, our Director of Development, who joined us in this new position over a month ago. Thank you all. Did you see them in the back? Give them applause. Thank you, and I will be back in June with more news on the foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Chambers. Your report is received with the thanks of the House. Which brings us to administrative items. What I would like to say for today is thank you again for joining the meeting. As I said last night at our dinner, I'm very grateful that you've chosen to spend your valuable time with us in this worthy endeavor. I also want to thank the Bar Association staff for all that they do. Many of you know, some of you don't know, Pamela McDevitt is the best executive director at any bar association in the country. She's widely respected. We're lucky to have her. She, along with the membership committee, have spearheaded this new membership model. I can tell you from personal experience, she checks the joins and rejoins many, many times throughout the day, every day. So she's on top of that for all our benefit. I also want to take a moment to thank the team that sets up, takes down, resets up, and feeds us for meetings like this. So please join me in Round of applause. As this is my last go-round as the chair of the House, I also have to tell you I owe a debt of gratitude to the association's general counsel, David Miranda. He has tutored and prepared me for each of these meetings with patience and wisdom, and of course, yes, if you know David, a healthy dose of humor. So thank you, David. I want to congratulate Domenick. I want to congratulate Susan and Taya and thank them for their friendship and support in this endeavor. Taya in particular, congratulations and good luck as you take over the chair of the House. That's moving on to new business. Does anyone have any new business? All right. That leads me to the best motion of the day, right? Do I have a motion? I'll pass the microphone, the gavel. All right. Taya, congratulations.
Don't forget to adjust the microphone.
The whole thing goes down.
Okay.
Before we proceed with the motion to adjourn, I have three things to say. First, I look forward to supporting the president-to-be, Kathleen Sweet, in her endeavors to help advance the cause of our mission in the bar and her particular initiative and goals. Two, I look forward to being your chair in the House of Delegates. And then three, and lastly, there will be a survey. We'll be issuing it in the next couple of weeks just to get some feedback to help us in planning for our agendas for the 2025-2026 bar year. And with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. It has been moved and it has been duly seconded, and we are adjourned until June.